And welcome to All Things Conflict with me, your host, Maria Arpa. I'm excited for this episode because our guest today is Rosie Brown, CBE, and she joined Cook in 2000 and is the co-CEO along with her brother, Edward. Cook is a growing food brand providing home cooked frozen meals in something like 112 retail outlets. And Rosie and her company believe that happy, healthy relationships are core to well-being at work. What I'm really interested in is the values of the business and their community give back. Cook has been a top 100 employer for over a decade and also known as one of the best employers to work for in the food industry. And Rosie is so passionate about helping people who have barriers to employment to find their feet, to build confidence, to build skills, and to become part of a team and go on to flourish and succeed. So this is going to be a really amazing episode and a really rich conversation about the things that we can do in our society when we put our minds and our hearts to it. So welcome, Rosie. Let's jump into the conversation. Rosie, welcome to All Things Conflict, and thank you so much. I mean, you must be one of the busiest women on the planet, and we'll get to hear about all the things that you're up to in a minute. It's really good to welcome you to this. This series is called Justice Redesigned, and I'm really interested in talking to people that are making a difference, that are doing things on the ground rather than complaining about everything that's broken. Because not everything is broken. It's just complex, complicated, and there are too many pieces and we can't cope. But before we get into it, I'd just love you to tell us a bit about yourself and the business that you run, Cook, and the other things you do, and some of your origins.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for having me. It's lovely to be here. So my day job is I run Cook, which is a company that makes amazing food that looks and tastes homemade. We've got about 112 shops and nationally, and that keeps me very busy. We really believe that business can be a force for good in the world. So we try. We have 3 impact programs that run. One is Raw Talent, which we're going to talk a little bit more about today, which is helping people with barriers to employment back into the workplace. So people who've experienced prison, homelessness, mental health issues. We've also got 2 other impact programs: a community kitchen to bring communities together over good food, and recipes for change, which is how we can create a more sustainable food system. So we're all about business as a force for good. But the raw talent work is really, a deep passion of mine, and that's led me to also working in prisons up and down the country, and now overseeing some employment boards in about 90 prisons, with a single goal of helping more prison leavers get back into work. And it all started really when I grew up in a very Christian household with my wonderful parents, and they had a bakery, and they always felt that business could contribute to society. And so they employed addicts from a local centre that supported recovering alcoholics. And so ever since I was very little, I used to go to this bakery, and I remember a chap called Steve with a massive spider's web tattoo all across his face. And I used to think this was totally normal. So for me, I think it's just been part of my DNA that you do what you can to support and help others, and business is a great way to do that, and who you employ is a really obvious way to do that. So that's sort of a little bit about my background, and we started the Raw Talent Programme about 2013 by knocking on doors of prisons locally and saying, we're a local business, we want to contribute to society and the community, you're part of our community, can we help your guys who are leaving the prisons? And that's where it started.
How incredible. I mean, I think the thing that there's just so much there with Raw Talent and the community kitchen and, all the things that you're doing as well as, over 100 retail outlets. And then there's obviously cooking the food and designing the food and making the food. I don't know do you actually get any time to sleep? It sounds enormous. But go on.
No, I was going to say I have a very good team.
Yeah.
I work with a lot of very brilliant people in both prisons and at work. So I'm very lucky. And I have a very brilliant husband who does an awful lot at home. So I'm a lucky girl.
Yeah, and there was something about, your normal being, as you grew up, your normal being parents that saw that their business could actually also do some good. And, this isn't the first time I've said this, but, if you run a business then and you choose that a model of a profit making business, then it must make a profit. I mean, if it doesn't make a profit, it's not a legitimate business. But what you do with that profit is what determines the contribution that you're making to society or what you're taking away from society. Does that resonate for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think business has to honor people and place. So when business starts to make a profit, but not honor, the place, the environment, the land, the people, um, we we get to where we've got to today, actually, with gross kind of corporate pay profits. Meanwhile, the people, on the front line aren't being paid properly. Um, and, so I think business has to make a profit like you. I also think it has to operate within boundaries, and those boundaries are properly honouring the people in place within the community.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful and eloquent way of putting it. And so that was your normal. You watched your parents do that. And, often, what we see our parents do, we turn away from and want to do the opposite. But it seems that really inspired you. Maybe you could talk about how you were inspired, or, whether it just felt like the right thing to do or the natural thing to do.
Well, I think I I had a fairly rebellious teenage and early 20s years, so I absolutely didn't follow in their footsteps, and I definitely haven't followed in their what I would call sort of conventional faith path. But I think what has absolutely stayed with me is the values of um, valuing every single human life. And actually, we're only strong when we do value every single human life. And if we don't do that, if we start thinking we're superior to other people, and we don't care for the weaker and the disadvantaged in our communities, we all lose. So I think that kind of value of um, caring for people, and it came from my mother, really is very strong. I mean, she used to go to church on a Sunday, and she every Sunday she used to find lonely, sad people and bring them back to our table for Sunday roast, because we had a Sunday roast every Sunday. And as stroppy teenagers who were like, oh mom, like, oh but of course it was a pretty valuable lesson in you share what you have and you open up your table. And so I think Raw Talent is just an extension of that, really. It's just how do you open up your table to include more people?
Yeah. So tell me about Raw Talent. Tell me about who comes through your doors, what the program is, what you do. You said you went knocking on the doors of local prisons and things. Prisons up and down the country, but just let's focus on Raw Talent. How people come to you, what you do with them, how do you help people? I mean, the word is rehabilitation, isn't it? Would that be a word you would use?
Yeah, absolutely. So Raw Talent, Raw stands for Ready and Working.
Ah,
And we aim to take people with barriers to employment and help them into sustainable work, preferably at Cook. And we measure the programme on how many people are working 6 and 12 months and beyond after that. So we really want to make sure it's impactful, and it's not just jobs and a rotating door, but actually we're doing the proper rehabilitation and healing towards sustainable lives. And we employ people from our community, and prison leavers, homelessness, recovering addicts, people with mental health barriers. And we um, take them on a cohort approach, and we do sort of 2 weeks of training with them. tackling all things about how to behave in the workplace, what's okay, what's not, confidence, setting goals, creating vision for your life, understanding barriers, what might get in your way. And it's an incredible program. And then, as part of the program, people have trial shifts in the kitchens, and then we hope to give them a job at the end of the day. And I think about 250 people have now been through the program. And then afterwards, they're supported with buddying, and the people the amazing people who lead the program, care and look after and buddy people. And it's not always easy. Complex lives have led to these people to where they are, and complex lives don't get restored in a heartbeat. It takes time, commitment, energy. But that, in a nutshell, is the Raw Talent Program.
I mean, that is just, it's such a sort of holistic and, bigger view because, there's for a long time, since this whole sort of prison thing has become more noticeable, there's just been a lot of talk about all we have to do is give people jobs and somewhere to live. That's all we have to do is give them a job, give them a job. And, my thing's always been, well, we can give someone a job, but if they're traumatised, if they haven't resolved conflict in their life, if they have issues around being close working proximity to other people, those things are going to show up, aren't they? They're going to show up. So we can give people a job, but how do we give them the best possible chance of actually succeeding in that job and changing? So I heard you say that it wasn't just training about being in the kitchen or how to manage food. The training was also, I heard you use the word confidence, conduct, empowerment, those sorts of things. So maybe you could speak to that.
Yeah, so the problem, and nationally, as we try and get more prison leavers into work as well, and we see it at Cook, there are plenty of jobs and there are plenty of people. So it's not about there not being enough
Right.
jobs or there not being enough. There's plenty of both. The problem is joining the dots with all that trauma, and the complex lives that have led people to a point where they're not working. And unless we address that, the very human unmet needs that have led people to where they are, we can put people in jobs, but they'll stay a week, they'll stay 2 weeks because their resilience won't be up to it. So the first sign of challenge, they'll take it personally, they'll slam a door, they'll walk out. We've had plenty of that. They'll swear inappropriately, they'll all sorts. I tell you, we've got it all. But I think in order to be able to really thrive as people, we need relationships, we need community, we need to feel seen. Um, and and those things take time and effort to build. And so you can't just start on a day job and have that community relationships, um, feeling seen, feeling valued, on day one. And what we try and give them is that from day one, because then when people have that, they're much, much more likely to succeed. So for me, we've got these huge growing population in the UK. I think there's about 3 million or something now of people who want to work but can't work for many of the challenges we face in Sittingbourne, like I've been talking about mental health, addiction, homelessness. And as a country, I think we need to really be looking at how we address that, because it's just getting them a job and telling them to turn up on day one isn't going to fix the problem. The problem is a much more human problem than that.
Yes, and yeah, I mean, so there's all sorts of things around social deprivation, exclusion, and then for the sorts of populations that you're talking about and that I like to work with too, there's stigma, and there's the whole, I'm going to turn up and people are going to be judging me before they've even put eyes on me.
Yeah, and often people who've been judged their whole life, they've been, we meet a lot of people who've been brought up in care, who've been in and out of the prison system. Um, they've barely had a chance, they have not had the same chances as you or I might have had. And so I think that's, fundamental challenge.
Yeah, and problems if you've been in the criminal justice system and if you had a really hard time at school, then you're inevitably going to have problems with authority because authority equals punishment, humiliation. And so therefore that, what I found was that you've had problems with authority, perhaps more force being used than is necessary within a prison or within a school. And then what you see is anybody that you perceive has power over you is a danger. And that's going to make it very difficult to take instruction from a line manager.
It's completely triggering.
Yeah.
So it triggers all that pain about feeling unseen, not feeling valued, feeling worthless, those kind of deep fears that we all hold to some extent. But when those fears have grown over time through care, prison, bad schooling, bad parenting, what have you, and those fears are very alive, it takes not very much to trigger them at all. And it can be just a line manager saying, could you do something differently? And boom, I'm worthless, I'm not valued, and you're straight back into that place. And that healing takes a long time, it doesn't happen overnight. But yeah, absolutely. Authority is one of the barriers that we have to overcome.
Yeah, you're very much reminding me of a project I did in a community, and it was all about teaching people conflict resolution skills and helping them find their feet and giving them some self-empowerment. Very poor community, and there was a local pastor, community member, who just used to keep saying to me, this is all rubbish, Maria, this is rubbish. We don't need you coming into our community and teaching people this. They need jobs. If you can't come here and bring jobs, you've got no business being here. And I used to listen to him, but, the project was the project and we continued. And then the project came to an end. And I found myself having to go back about 2 years later into that community because two people that had become quite prominent in the community had fallen out with each other, and they were from two different cultures. And I just felt like I just need to get on a plane, go there and bang their heads together in the most compassionate way I know how, because they're setting an example. And I'd forgotten all about this guy, but I ran into him and he said, "Where have you been?" I said, well, project came to an end. He said, "I owe you a huge apology." I said, "What on earth for?" He said, "I used to tell you that what you were doing was useless and, I didn't believe in what you were doing. But after you left, all these people I was putting into jobs, they're all crazy now. They've all like, you were obviously doing something that helped people to go to work." And he said, "Come back."
Excellent.
And that was really, it's very gratifying and validating that, we're onto something here. And that's what you're doing in Raw Talent, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's, for me, I think it's just important to say that does come with really clear boundaries, because what we're not is a social service. And I think healing requires accountability. And so, I think this is not about sort of a bleeding heart liberalism, if you say that.
Absolutely not.
This is about taking people who want to create change in their lives, helping them be accountable, giving people tools and training, and traveling that path together. It's not about we're going to roll over and take whatever behavior you throw at us and put up with it because poor you, because I don't think that would be doing anyone any favors at all. Because like you say, I think sometimes that deep transformation, it requires clear boundaries sometimes. So I think that's absolutely part of it.
Yeah, well, I've been asked, I talk a lot about compassionate communication, and I've been asked, what is compassionate communication, and, is it just a lot of soft skills? And, my response to that is absolutely not. I think the most compassionate thing I can do is set out for someone clearly, in a loving way, what the limits and boundaries and tolerances are of the situation they find themselves in. Not wait for someone to fall over and then have a go at them, but to actually help them to see that everything is about the way we want to participate and join in and be included comes with a set of responsibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. And not enable bad behavior.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
absolutely. Is to be able to say, but also not to punish it out of people. To have people find that place through their own inner compass. So I talk about, the work I do is providing people with an inner compass, an inner thermometer, and an inner barometer, so they can learn to navigate what's in front of them from the sense of being part of a community and the impact that we're having on each other, but also to be able to articulate the impact others are having on them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's absolutely core to the work we do is setting things out clearly, offering support, offering training. Um, you're not doing anyone any favors if you're pretending everything's fine when you know it's not. We're managing line
Mm,
managers who might be struggling with, someone turning up
mm,
late or not turning up at all.
mm.
And so you need very clear expectations. But I think everyone does. My kids need it. We all need it,
Yeah.
don't we? We do better when we know what's expected of us, and then we're supported to achieve it. So yeah, totally agree.
So I'm really moved to ask, and obviously just no names or nothing that could identify anybody, but you must have several good success stories of people that you met, at their worst time of their life and how they've gone through the program and into the business and where they are now or what they've gone on to do. And I think it would be really nice because we always hear about people failing and falling over and how terrible things are, but I'd love to hear a couple of success stories or stories where transformation has taken place.
Yeah, well, we've had so many of those over the years, and I would say those stories have transformed us as much as they've
Yes.
transformed the individual. But I'll come on to that. But we had a lovely chap who it's one of my favourite stories because it's a story that's come full circle. We donate meals to a homeless centre in Rochester, and we do their lunch every day. And he was a chap that was frequenting, it's for the homeless people, and he was frequenting there, and he was an addict and in and out of prison and a truly chaotic life. And um, he started helping to serve the lunches there. And through that, he built confidence and we got to know him. He then came to work for us. While he was working with us, he got his first flat, he got married, um, and he worked for us for a number of years. And recently, he's just gone back to the centre as a paid employee to support other
Wow.
people. And it's just such a beautiful story about what's possible. He committed to his change and transformation journey, but he's gone from a really deeply chaotic life, and he didn't have much longer left to live, I don't think, because of his drug habit. And he's now well, healthy, and supporting other people. And that is a story that's played out, a few times. And one of the anecdotes that I think has stuck with me most is I came to work and it's a busy office, and dropping kids off, bit fraught. Morning, everyone. Morning. Sit down, typing away at the computer, and there was a chap there from the Raw Talent program, and he had come through the Raw Talent program himself. Again, another addict in and out of prison, and he was working in the office now, supporting other Raw Talents, which is great. And he looked at me, and he was in his first sort of couple of weeks of being in an office, and he pushed his chair back and he said, "It's so healing for me to be here." And I said, "What? What are you talking about?" And he said, "I've been in care, I've been in prisons, I've been in drug dens, and just it's so healing to be in a place where everyone's nice to each other." And I
Mm,
was really curious about this. And so I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, people say good morning, you offer to make each other cups of tea. There's like deep humanity in this office." And it just really took me aback because it was something I had completely taken for granted. And to him, he was finding it a really healing experience. And I just thought I was really kind of, yeah, beautiful. It just made me, it slightly took my breath away
mm.
because it really touched me. I was like, wow, something I can just totally take for granted. for him is an eye-opening way of how life could be that he had never seen before. So yeah, it was
Yeah.
just amazing.
Yeah, and it's amazing how much toxic tolerance that we build up when we get into dysfunctional or violent or whatever situations or systems, like prisons. No one wants to be in prison, for example. And what you find is incrementally you start to change when you're subjected to abuse and violence and negativity, and even for the staff, I have a heart for all the staff that go to work in these circumstances, and how much sometimes, their own families who don't work in those environments don't understand the pressure that people are under. That you're going to a job where you're going to get spat at or hit or sworn at or whatever. And how much tolerance we build up for all of that and then when that becomes your norm.
Well, I agree. I think you can build a really healthy culture and environment, be that in the home or in the
Mm,
workplace, and you can build a really unhealthy one.
mm,
And I think one of the things that the Raw Talent Programme has done for us at Cook is helped us build a really, really rich culture. We've got a team of about 2,000, and um, we've been in the sort of top companies to work for a decade. And I really believe part of that is because of the Raw Talent Programme, because when you walk the path with people, it transforms everyone, not just the person.
mm,
And I think, it's that, is it mycelium, the sort of stringy roots of trees in a forest that all
mm,
connect, and they transfer water and carbon and nitrogen, and they make the whole
mm.
forest stronger. The stronger trees give more to the weaker ones, but then in time, the weak ones grow strong and they give back to the older ones. And it's, that sort of, and the whole forest grows strong. And for me, that's what, when we support the most disadvantaged and the weakest in our communities or workplaces or homes, even, everyone grows stronger. Um, and yeah, that's, so for me, it's really important that it's not work, that it's about charity, or that it's a one-way thing, or aren't we great helping you. It's
It's not
it's
a
some
top down process.
it's something that's enriching the lives of everybody who comes into contact with it. So for me, that's like really important.
Absolutely. And we learn, certainly when I go into these prisons or communities and neighbourhoods and things, and I encounter people in dire social deprivation, it brings back a humility. It reminds me that it reminds me not to take things for granted. It reminds me that, we are all connected. And, if I want to be really brutal about it, the fact of the matter is we don't execute people in our community. We don't say, well, you're worthless, so we're going to kill you, so you're not a drain on society. So why do we want to, even if I'm looking at it from a very brutal perspective, why do we want to do things that in the end prevent more and more people from participating and being included and being the best they can be? Why would we do that? That's just a drain.
Yeah, well, it affects us all in the end, and we're
Yeah, yeah.
fools. We're fools if we if we think what goes on somewhere, over there doesn't affect us, because, as you say, we're all connected, and it will all come back in the end. And so, we have a sort of imperative, I think, to make sure the most disadvantaged in our society are sort of lifted up and supported, because it'll lift us all.
Because it lifts us all, that's right. And because then we can all be better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for me, what you're describing actually really defines the word sustainability.
Yeah, I think sustainability is absolutely, we have to, you can go further than sustainability and regenerative, but if we're not looking after whole swathes of people, and we're
Mm,
ignoring them, and we're leaving them to rot, and we're letting that population grow, um, we are not in a sustainable society. Ultimately, it
yes.
might take years and years to play out, but it will not be sustainable.
Mm,
Um, and and that's up to all of us. to do something. I don't think, as you know, I think the world's got too complex to sort of just think government can fix it all. And possibly it's going back to sort of David Cameron's big society idea. But I think the more, political leaders, business leaders, public service leaders, leaders from across the spectrum are able to step up and do what something in their, business, town, policy area, it's going to take all of us, I think, to really create a healthy society. And the minute we're expecting someone else to do it, I think we're yeah, it's not going to happen, folks. It's like everyone needs to put their shoulder to the wheel a bit, really. We're all on planet Earth, so
Yes,
everyone needs to play their part.
And there's some contribution that we can all make in some way, because
Yeah,
I think
absolutely,
I
however
totally
small.
agree with you. Things are so complicated, so complex, and going at such a fast pace that government is not relying on government is foolish.
No, I think we can all do something, however small.
Hmm.
And if you can't do something, then you can support the people that are doing
Yeah.
something. Um, but I don't think waiting for someone else to, you know, fix it all is the answer.
Thank you. So we're kind of coming to the end of our time together now. And this has been a very rich conversation. And, I hope that we are going to do more together and certainly, figure out ways to collaborate and make each other's lives better and the people that we're serving. But I have a sort of last minute question, if I might, sort of surprise question, really, because I'm interested in your sort of quick reaction. Is that okay? Can I?
Go for it.
Yeah, thank you. So if this series is called Justice Redefined. So if I were to give you the keys to the Ministry of Justice, hand them to you tomorrow and say, you can make one change immediately, what change would you make?
It's a very big question. I think I would like to see more intentional healing in prison. In not just prison, in the system. I
Hmm.
think we need to recognize that a huge number of people in prison, not all of them, but a huge number, are there because of very complex lives. You just need to look at the statistics for care leavers and similar. Um, and so I think justice is important. I think boundaries are important. But I think humanity is important too. And I would like to see a system with more humanity built into it, so that when people leave prison, they are on a better footing than when they went in. And I fear too often at the moment they come out of prison in a worse place than they went in, hence the high rates of reoffending. So
Yes.
I'd like to see more intentional healing and rehabilitation in the system.
Yes, I think that's really wise, and we all benefit from that. I think the word that's missing from our justice system is mercy, and you can't have justice without mercy.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Nice. That's a
And
better way of saying it.
so if anyone's interested or they've kind of heard about what you're doing and they think, wow, this is amazing, where can they find out more?
Um, well, you can go straight to our website, so cookfood.net. There's a section on raw talent and some videos showing a
Mhm.
little bit more about what we do. There's an email address there too, rawtalent@cookfood.net. We're really keen to share what we've learned, our program. We've trained sort of over 100 companies in it now. So we're sort of, just open sourcing it, not charging anything for it. We're just really keen um, that more people do this. So anything we can help to do that, we will.
Fantastic. Thank you. This has been a very pleasurable and sacred time together. So thank you, Rosie, and thank you for everything you're doing in society.
Well, likewise, thank you very much for having me. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Much love. Bye.
Bye.